Hello, everybody, and welcome in. My name is Lou. Welcome to what some people are calling episode 15 of Brits and Yanks Talk Trek, podcast for Trekkies, Trekkers, and absolutely everything in between, brought together as a group of friends from both sides of the pond with an obsession about a little game called Star Trek Fleet Command. But obviously, we're not just going to be talking about that today. We're going to be exploring something to do with Star Trek. We're going to be exploring the cultural differences between the US and the UK, of which we have established they are many. Please share this out with everybody that you know. Everybody that's interested in Star Trek, obviously everybody in your alliance, your friends, all that sort of thing. Even your mother might want to listen. So ask her if she wants to listen and talk about and listen to us talk about Star Trek and all those beautiful things. We want you to get involved. I mention this all the time. So let us know topics, suggestions, give us some feedback on the podcast, anything you'd like to see, anything you'd like us to change. We're always open to feedback. Obviously, we'll always listen to it and then we'll completely ignore it. Only joking. We won't really, obviously, give us any feedback. We're more than happy to do that for you. Please consider as well leaving us a review. We are trying to push the reviews on there. Leave us 6 out of 5 stars on iTunes or Spotify or Podbean, wherever you decide to listen to this. And please make sure that you have got the podcast set to download, just so that it goes straight into your podcast app every single time we launch a new episode every other week. Okay, so who have we got with us today? Obviously, we've got myself. I'm here. We have got a full raft in today. We've got the whole Brits and Yanks Talk Trek team here. We have got Mr. Perfection himself. We've got Silvers. How are you, buddy? And how has your day been?
My day has been very busy, but productive.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear. What have you been doing today?
Oh, homework all over the place.
Oh, wow. See, that sounds crazy for a Saturday. We've got the storyteller himself. We've got Stewie. How are you, buddy? How are things over there in France? How's Napoleon?
This is actually recording now, yeah? I'm good. Thank you very much. Glad you learned how to record us.
Yeah, just for a bit of clarity, if you do sign up to become a member, please go check out the pre-show. The pre-show is available to everybody who signs up to become a member at itslube.com. You can go and listen to all the shenanigans that goes on beforehand, apart from the stuff that I'm unable to record, because clearly after doing 15 episodes of this, I'm unable to actually work podcasting software, which is a little bit of a shame. But yeah, nice to see you, Stewie, I think. Minnie, we've got the Tribble Mother herself. Minnie, how are you? Hope you are very, very well. How has your day been?
Absolutely fantastic day. Nice and relaxed. Lovely jubbly.
Marvellous. Sounds far different to Silver's. We've got the king of the graphic himself. Candy, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good.
Fantastic. And then finally, we've got the professor. We've got Puttz. How are you, buddy? Welcome back as an official member of the Brits and Yanks Talk Trek panel now. How are you, buddy?
Oh, that makes my heart grow 3 sizes. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
3 times 0 is still 0.
And I've also put a note on my cheat sheet. Are you 51 yet?
No.
So yeah, we have got the entire Brits and Yanks Talk Trek team here, which is great because I think we've got some really good topics to talk about, and we're going to dive straight in to our Star Trek topic, and we're going to be talking about things that you maybe didn't know about Deep Space Nine / interesting facts about Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine being one of my favourites. It was the one that I wanted to start with on this topic. And basically what we've asked the panel to do is come up with things that you maybe didn't know. It might even be your favourite one. You might have watched it through once or twice, but there's probably little bits and little nuances that you maybe didn't know about the series, about the actors, about the origins, all that sort of thing. So I've asked the panel to come up with some things to try and educate you and give you a little bit deeper knowledge about Deep Space Nine. And as an official member, Puttz, I will let you crack on. Give us a couple of interesting facts about Deep Space Nine.
Okay, so the very first one I would like to talk about is M&Ms. Did you know that in the scenes where they're in the medical bay, they would have jars filled with what looked like pills or whatnot, and those were all actually M&Ms, different like almond M&Ms, peanut M&Ms for the different sizes, and that if you look through the first couple of seasons, you will see episodes where they shoot multiple times in the medical bay, and you will see the levels of the jars go up and down because the crew and the actors would sneak M&Ms.
Why would you not?
So they by season 3 they epoxy glued the lids on.
Are you sure it wasn't DJ's son that was there?
I
looking
mean-
at-
Yes, we did. Exactly. So there is a long history of Eminem and stealing with Star Trek.
God, do you know? I bet he never knew that. Somebody needs to tell DJ that. Ultimate DJ, another
absolutely.
fantastic content creator for Star Trek Fleet Command. He also runs a podcast. He's very into his M&Ms, isn't he? So I'm sure he absolutely love to hear that. And if you ever listen to this DJ and we mention it, PM me and let me know that you've actually listened to that section where we actually talked about you. So no, absolutely great, fantastic. Minnie, give us an interesting fact about Deep Space Nine, or something nobody will have
Right.
known, because I never knew that.
Well, my interesting fact, because I've spent hours on this 3 minutes before recording started. My
You
interesting
got
fact.
hours in that short space of time. Impressive.
I know, right? I know.
Time travel again.
Hey.
When it came to the reboot of Battlestar Galactica, they actually took a lot of their inspiration from Deep Space Nine. And whereas, I mean, spoilers here, but whereas we had the changelings who became the ultimate enemy and therefore created this whole paranoia if you couldn't trust your best friend, that is why the Cylons became human-like, to give that same paranoia. And also, Kara Thrace's name and her religious epiphany within the reboot is set to be in line with Kira's out of Deep Space Nine. So I thought, very two interesting facts I didn't know.
God, I never knew that. I mean, I have to admit, I've never watched Battlestar Galactica, but I understand the premise of it. Do you know what I mean? I understand what goes on. I know what you've just said. But no, I never knew that. But I mean, that happens quite often, doesn't it? Especially, there's only, when you're talking about space, obviously, they do copy quite a few things across different platforms, across different shows and things. So, I mean, that can happen. But no, I never knew it was so keenly based on it. So, no, that is super interesting. Candy, give us an interesting fact.
One thing I thought was kind of interesting was that so there's the actor Brock Peters, who plays Benjamin Sisko's father, Joseph Sisko, in the series, is one of maybe only 2 or 3 other actors in the entire Star Trek verse that's actually played a completely different character in other time segments of the Star Trek timeline. Where in Star Trek 4 and Star Trek 6, he was Admiral Cartwright.
Oh, God, he was, wasn't he? Yeah, I think didn't we only ever see him on the view screen? Did we ever see him in real life? I remember seeing. I know they spoke to him over the view screen, but I don't recall them ever actually talking to him in person. But God, yeah, I totally forgot he was in that.
Yeah,
He played
Jeffrey
the-
Combs. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jeffrey Combs also is Wayun, and is also the Andorian in
Shran.
Enterprise.
Shran. He's also
Shran.
in
and
Deep
also,
Space Nine.
and also, yeah, he's all over the place.
Yeah, so he plays. Obviously, he plays Wayun. He also plays Brunt. In Deep Space Nine, if I remember rightly.
Yep, he was a Ferengi. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was a very, very talented guy. He was able to turn his hand to lots of different places, wasn't he? But no, I totally forgot that. That's a really good one, Candy. I like that. Stewie.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a nice simple one first, which is Morn, the bar urchin, the guy that sits at the end of the bar. His name's actually an anagram of Norm, and it was a nod to the character from Cheers.
Oh, really? See,
Yep.
that is clever. Do you know Morn? There isn't anybody, is there, that didn't enjoy Morn as a character, and the bloke never did anything.
Well, this is a thing that apparently there was an ongoing joke throughout the cast and all that, and there was always references with the characters saying that he always talks so much and all of this, and it was,
And it wasn't a
when
joke,
he's
was
off
it?
camera, no,
It wasn't even a
off
joke.
camera he was always talking and all of this, and of course on camera never said a thing.
No, I mean probably the biggest episode with him in it was the one where, do you remember when they was trying to find the latinum in all them bricks?
He swallowed it, didn't he, or something?
And he'd swallowed it and kept it in his
Yeah.
58th stomach or something like that.
Something like
And
that,
Quark sat there going, "Oh my God, this is just gold. This is just pure gold. Where's the latinum?" and yeah, it was Morn. Wasn't that where Morn had thought Morn had died, and they just walked in?
Something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
that was they were executing his last will and testament, and he faked his death. And you learn at the end that the reason why he has no hair and the reason why his skin looks all that way is because he has been holding all of that like poisonous liquid latinum or whatever it is in his stomach for that long.
God, so he was actually quite a handsome chap. Now he just looks like shit.
Apparently.
He's never this pretty.
Never that pretty, never that good. I've got one, and I thought this was a little bit interesting. Cyril Clofton, who plays Jake Sisko. Now, I associated him with being in practically every episode. I thought he was a really mainstay character. But did you know, out of 173 episodes of Deep Space Nine, he was actually only in 85? Can you believe that?
Well, it's got to be
85.
more.
So he actually managed to annoy me as much as he did it, and only be an 85.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. It's like the Wesley effect, isn't it? It's like the Wesley effect from TNG.
Oh,
Right, yeah, he annoyed you that much out of 85 episodes. But Morn, going back to Morn, was actually the most frequent recurring character, appearing in 92 episodes. So Morn was in more episodes physically there than Jake Sisko.
and didn't have a line to learn.
And didn't have one line to. How good's that? You've got 92 credits, and you've never had to say anything. Never had to say anything.
Yeah. He didn't have to say anything, but he also had to come in at 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. and sit in the makeup chair for 7 hours every time he had to do it.
Other interesting fact for you, and I knew this one. The reason that Worf didn't want to come in earlier into Deep Space Nine was purely because he couldn't be bothered to go through all the makeup and everything. Couldn't be bothered to go for the makeup, like he'd just done 7 years with TNG. He just couldn't be bothered. Obviously, the movies, all that sort of thing. But then apparently the money was too good to turn down, and that's why he reprised his role as Worf starting in season 4. Obviously, when we started to get the Klingon and Dominion and all that sort of stuff started to kick off. So there's another little interesting fact for you. Silvers, what you got for us?
So I found out recently that the character for Kira Nerys was never intended for Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
She was a last-minute addition. The directors had initially chosen to have the character of Ro Laren from The Next Generation to play that role of working closely with Sisko as the I don't know, whoever's in charge of the station when Sisko's on away, and the actress Michelle Forbes didn't want to do a series at the time that they were starting Deep Space Nine, so they had to create this whole new character of Kira Nerys.
Oh, wow.
Ro would have been fabulous, wouldn't she?
Yeah,
Gone on to True Blood by then, hadn't she?
She had. I mean, we've given Ro many raps, haven't we, on this podcast many times? We've said how much that we like Ro as a character and that we'd love to have seen her more than what we did. And I think she would have been an outstanding rebel-y first officer. I don't dislike Kira. I don't dislike Kira Nerys at all. And I think, bearing in mind she was the second choice, then I mean, I'm not disappointed. But it would have been such a different. How do we think it would have been different with Ro? So having a Starfleet captain / commander and first officer. What do we think that would have added any different dynamics to the show?
Well, technically, we don't have to imagine, because if you follow the canonical novels that happen that are officially licensed and that happen after the show ends, the next commander after Kira Nerys is actually Ro Laren. She comes like in the novels. She is actually the commander of Deep Space Nine for several years.
Novels, is that one of those paper thingies?
Yes, book.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just quick time out. Are we happy with the
Maybe
word
it's free,
canonical?
isn't it, the book?
Are we happy with the word canonical?
I might have made that up.
I'm not sure I'm happy with that.
As opposed to what?
I think it's supposed to be conical.
Conical.
Yeah. I was maybe thinking of cankles. I was maybe thinking of that. Yeah.
Get your mind out of the
Get your
gutter.
mind out of the gutter, kid. Get it out. Candy, have you got anything else for us?
I think that's about it. Because I mean, if you or for a trivia segment, if you can name the other two characters that also reprise different roles throughout the Star Trek series line.
There's your quiz question. So 2 more characters that were in Deep Space Nine that reprised roles. Yeah?
Or just in the Star Trek universe itself.
Yes. People that played multiple characters. That's a really good one. I like that. And I can't think of any off the top of my head. Minnie, have you got anything else for us?
Nope.
Stu Pop.
Nope. Yeah, I have. O'Brien's uniform.
Go on.
You know how he when he was being set up or in wardrobe, when they were designing his uniform, he made 2 requests. He says that he considered his character to be a working person, should I say, and as such, he should have sort of like brief slacks to go with it. So he needed the sleeves to be able to be pulled up, and he wanted pockets so that he could have his tools put into them. And what they actually ended up doing is they designed the top in such a way that the inner sleeve was actually cut shorter so that it looked like it was wrapped up, but it wasn't. And then they put Velcro around the bottom of the actual top bit, the black bit, so that when it went up, it actually velcroed onto the bottom bit, so it looked like he had them pulled up all the time.
Oh, and that's the. I mean, one of the funniest moments in Deep Space Nine comes from Miles O'Brien. It's about his uniform. It's when they land on that planet and everything's gone wrong. They've crashed the ship into the ocean. There's 3 of them that have died that are just floating off into the sea, and they're crawling and scraping. They've got no food. They've got no way of getting home. And can you remember what he's stressed out about?
Was it a tear on his uniform or something?
I tore my pants. And Cisco looks, he said, Miles goes, oh no. And Cisco thinks, oh my God, what on earth has happened? He goes, what's happened? He goes, I tore my pants. And then Cisco looks at him and goes, you tore your pants. And then they all just have a little giggle on the beach, don't they? Because as if that's like the main thing that's gone wrong. We have the ship just burning in the in the background that's crashed into the water.
It was important enough for him to make that request, though, before, when he was took the role on.
Exactly. And now he's tore them, so that's never a good thing, is it?
Never.
No. I've got a quick one for you, and then we'll come to Puttz. So, Julian Bashir, his last name was originally not going to be Bashir, and it was only changed literally just before The Emissary, which is episode 1 in 1993, went into pre-production. He was going to be called Dr. Julian Amoros. That was going to be his name. And whilst we're on Julian, I've got another one. Did you know that he actually married Nana Visitor, who played Major Kira?
Yeah, for about 4 years, weren't they? 5 years.
Yeah, and they had a child as well. So they had a child together and they actually married. So that's on stage. Julian Bashir married Major Kira, and obviously they had a child together as well. So another interesting one. Puttz, I know you're going to have another one.
Okay, so I was thinking about this, and I was wanting to know, where exactly is Deep Space Nine in relationship to like planets? Like, is it in a star system? Is it in between stars? I didn't know.
It is a satellite of Bajor.
Yeah, well, I went to go and look, and the history is it was built to be around Bajor. They physically moved it when the wormhole showed up to basically somewhere beyond Bajor in the Bajoran star system. And now and then they parked it there. Well, here's the thing. If they parked it there, okay, it has mass. It has to have constant engines going, pushing it away from the sun, or it's going to fall in eventually. Gravity will win. It will always fall back into the star, but the Bajoran star, not the sun. That's ours. So my fun fact is that it always has to have its engines on, and it always has to be basically flying away from the star in order to maintain its position in the star system.
And that's just physically correct, isn't it? I'm using physically as the word for physics. I know whether I'm allowed to use that. I don't really know. But Silvers, why didn't you come up with that?
Because I I don't know if that's true. If
Sounds reasonable.
Bajor is orbiting around its star and the relative distance between Bajor and Deep Space Nine is supposed to be roughly the same, then logic would dictate that Deep Space Nine would also need to be orbiting at the same rate.
However,
so that would
I looked
indicate that
Well,
Bajor,
yes,
Deep Space Nine, and the wormhole would all be in an orbit at the same
You-
rate.
I
about
need
You
to
are
know
that
if
correct.
star.
Puttz is suggesting
However-
that our moon has always got its engines on.
No. Here's the thing. Silvis is right. Except for he made
Sorry, Puttz. I'm laughing at
So,
Minnie
yeah.
with her little
I
moon
know.
engines.
no.
Minnie's moon engines. Love that.
Okay. So he made the assumption that the Deep Space Nine is always the same distance from Bajor, when in fact it has been referenced as being 3 hours away on a shuttle or 5 hours away, depending on where it is in its orbit. And also, they have also referenced that the wormhole is static in relationship to the star, and it is not orbiting. So it has to stay in a physical same spot without orbiting. I would have agreed that it all could have orbited, but that's not how it works in by the way they've said it on the show.
And assuming so, I mean, the wormhole must have its own gravitational pull as well, mustn't it? So it must have. So
It
if
does.
If
does.
If the station wants to stay in a relative distance from the wormhole, it has to be pushing away, otherwise it'll just get sucked into it.
Exactly. It could be possibly at the Lagrange point between the wormhole and the sun, but I don't think. I think it would have to always have to be in that sweet spot. So its engines would always have to be running. But it's also been stated that it's 1,000 kilometers outside the event horizon of the wormhole.
I think that's super. And
Pretty close.
we're never going to know, are we? We're never going to know if the way that that actually works. But no, that physically, that sounds like it's definitely the right way to go. So my last one that we're going to do, unless anybody's got anything that they're dying to say, and this is probably one that I never really thought of before. DS9 is the only Star Trek TV series not to have any human females as part of the main cast. So obviously, Kira is Bajoran and Dax is a Trill. Obviously, the only recurring human characters in Deep Space Nine are actually Cassidy Yates, obviously Sisko's plaything, and Keiko O'Brien. They're the only human females. It's the only Star Trek series without a human female main cast member. I think that's quite interesting as well. I love the fact that we always get silence after mine, as if mine are really crap. I like that.
I just wanted to try and prove you wrong, but I can't.
I have a
do
quick
have-
question
have
referring
one
back
more.
to Dr. Bashir and Kira.
Yeah.
Kira was actually pregnant during the filming. Became
Right.
Miles O'Brien and Kiko's child. Is that the child that we were referring to from their marriage together?
Yes, it is.
show?
So
You-
obviously,
You are
Kira.
correct.
So yeah, go on, Puttz.
You are correct. And there is a scene where Kira points to Bashir and goes, "You did this to me," meaning that he was the one in the show. He was the one that transplanted the baby in there. But in reality, it could have also meant that, like, yeah, you're the one who got me pregnant.
A double meaning. That is so clever
Yeah.
to wind that in. Whoever wrote that into the script, that is such a clever thing to write in. Really like that. Okay. Anybody else got anything else that they want to
got
dive
one.
into? Go on then.
And I'm honestly kind of surprised that you didn't choose to talk about this one, Lube. But it's regarding the ATM that's just outside of Cork's bar.
Oh yeah.
There is actually an ATM on the promenade, and one can get Bajoran ETAs, Federation credits, Cardassian EX, or Ferengi Latinum out of that ATM.
Can you get faction rep from it?
Our alliance credits. Yeah.
Or alliance
Just something,
credits.
because I haven't got enough of them from anywhere else. Yeah. Oh, God. Oh, no, super interesting. I hope you all found that interesting. We could probably do a whole nother section on Deep Space Nine. I've got loads of little fact stuff, so we might save them for another time. And then we've got all of the other shows as well. So I hope you really enjoyed that section. But now we're going to move on, and we're going to move on to our next topic, which we are going to talk about in Freedom and Reason. Okay, Freedom and Reason. So, let's talk about the cultural differences between the US and the UK, and obviously just general differences as well. Now, this was a topic brought up by our one and only Puttz. Puttz, I'm going to let you lead on this. I'm going to let you start with where you want this section to go, and then we can all just chip in as we go.
So I was thinking that, my profession is education, and I know just about all there is to know about, how education system works in the United States. I know nothing about the education system in the UK. I don't even know what an A-level test is. I don't know the difference between your definition between college and university, prep, secondary, grammar school. I may even be making up terms that I thought I heard in a movie one day. I have no idea. But that's the topic for today.
Awesome. So I think the best thing for us to do is probably to start early doors and then obviously move through as kids, then into adults, obviously work on. So talk to us about, when do kids in the US first sort of start education?
So
Formal
everyone
education.
everyone is required to go to kindergarten through 12th grade, right? K-12 is what we call it. And those are normally, public systems by geographic location. Most of the time, the normal operation is you have a elementary school, which has K through 6th or maybe sometimes 5th grade. And then you have middle school or junior high, which has sometimes 5th or 6th all the way through 8th grade. And then you have what they call high school, which is 9th through 12th grade. At anywhere along the process, we have private schools, some that are religiously based, some that are secular. But these would be, you have to pay tuition to go to them. We also have, before kindergarten, we have the Head Start program and also preschool. So, I don't know if you want to call that formal education, but I would say at age 5, that is when, formal education starts in the United States and goes until you are 17, 18 years old.
So we're very, very similar. Stewie, you chip in if it's slightly different over there in France, but for this for this side, very, very similar. So our formal school, we don't call them grades over here. We would call them years, because obviously we like to use the simple term. There's no reason to call it a grade, is there? So we like to call it something simple, which is years. So you start, yeah. So je m'appelle. Again, that's all I know in French, and then I'm out. C'est la vie. But no, is that French? Yeah, that'll do. Jesus. So we would start off. Now, kids start off here in the only one that doesn't have a year, which is called reception. Reception's like preschool, and you'd go there after what we would call nursery. So kids start nursery, sort of 2-3 year old, and then they would go to school where there would be a reception class, which is like a welcome to school type thing. Where basically, I mean, formal education is probably a strong way of putting it. It's all about just getting them involved in a routine. It's about obviously they do have like structured lessons, but it's more about play than it is about formal actually learning, where you sit down and read and do all that sort of stuff. It's a little bit less formal. Then we go to year 1, and we tend to have reception through to year 6, which takes the kids up to being about 11. That would be what we would call a primary school. So then after primary school, we would then go to a secondary school. And the secondary school, you then start in year 7, and you run that through to year 11. So obviously you have 5 years at secondary school. And in terms of qualifications, the only formal qualifications that you can get out of school generally are at sort of GCSE level, which is General Certificates of Secondary Education. Or you can also get some other vocational, more type qualifications, things, again, not to go into it too, things like BTEC awards and things like that, which are more hands-on learning rather than sort of fact-based, information-based learning generally. And then obviously after that, we've then got college, which is for kids that are normally 16 to 18. And after that, we then have university. So it's quite straightforward, ours really. Primary, secondary, college, university. That's how ours would work. Now, your grades system, so I just want to see if they sort of line up. So you said your kids start in, how old are they in first grade?
Either 5 or 6. They're going to be 5 going on 6.
Right, so 5.
6 going on 7.
Okay, depends on.
Silvers would
that
know
is
because he's
also-
currently only in the 3rd grade. So
Well,
Silvers
no,
would likely know.
Actually, that is actually a option, and it's all depending on the state. There may be state requirements that require, but there is actually a tradition in the United States to hold back males a year and start them at 6, and push girls forward, starting them at 5, if you want them to do better in sports when they get into high school.
Okay, explain that to me. I don't understand why you would do that again. I don't really get how sports is that.
Okay, so if you start 1 year later as a male, and there's other males that you're going up against, now you have 1 year of maturity on your body going in, and you're basically a sophomore or going up against a freshman, at that level. And for females,
what the
Yeah.
hell is a softman or a freshboard? What does that mean?
Okay, so in high school in the United States, we have 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades. They also go by other names called freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. We also use those notations at college or university, 4-year university and colleges, where you are a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior.
Freshman, you fresh in. I get that. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Sophomore, I get senior. What was one in between that?
Junior and then senior.
Junior, senior, get it. What does sophomore mean?
I have no idea what sophomore is, and just look up the spelling, because it is crazy. Because some people put a third syllable and call it sophomore.
So it's actually spelled Sierra Oscar Papa Hotel Oscar Mike Oscar Romeo Echo. So it's SOPHOMORE. So it's actually spelt sophomore, isn't it?
Right, but it is normally pronounced sophomore, two syllables.
Right. Okay. So just to go back to the primary school kids, what we would call them. So when we start year 1, to make it easy, our kids are say 4 to 5. First grade for you is like a year later generally. Let's forget the gender diversity. They're about a year later. So really, like when you get to 9th grade, that will be the equivalent of us being in like year 8. We're always going to be a year behind you in terms of numbers.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we end it in 12th grade. A lot of 12th graders or seniors are either have turned 18, or some may have even turned 19 before they graduate.
Yeah, see, we're year 12, year 13, which is our college years. Again, just to keep it simple, year 12, year 13 is our college years.
Secondary school.
Say again.
Yeah.
There are secondary school years.
Secondary school years, 7 to 11, primary school years, 1 to 6. And then we have college years, which are 12 and 13. And then we don't really have years in university, do we? We just have the years.
No. You're sending us to Wait, are you talking about the age or the year? Sorry, I think I got mixed up then.
Sorry, yeah, obviously we have year 8, don't we? Year 8, the kids are what, 13? Year 8, the kids are turning 13. Year 9, they're turning 14. Or is it year
I
after?
can just tell you this, Puttz, that it changed because there's 10 years exactly between Lube and I. And when I started in secondary school, it was 1, 2, 3 again. And then the curriculum is constantly changing. Every time we get a new government, they rewrite the curriculum and they rechange things.
Yeah.
And then it got the years system.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it was nursery, reception was a new thing, wasn't it? Because you went to nursery and you built all your pasta boxes and you took it home and painted. And now we've got, we have a curriculum from reception. So as beautiful as Lube made it sound, that it's just kids all getting together and hugging each other, it's not anymore.
Is it a lot more educational now? Wow.
It's a lot more educational. Afternoon naps don't exist.
So I want to know, what is the difference between college and university? Like what are you learning in those 2 years then you go on to university?
So they'd be your A levels.
Go on.
Or your
Yes,
higher
yes. What is
diploma.
this A-level stuff? Tell me, please.
Advanced. It's your advanced.
So going back to when Minnie
qualification.
was a kid, I was telling you about GCSEs. GCSEs are
I had GCSEs. I'm not that old.
really okay. So prior to GCSEs being our secondary education qualification. That's what they are. GCSEs, which you get for us year 11, which is when the kids are 15, 10, and 16. That sort of age. After the GCSEs, but they didn't used to be called that. They used to be called O levels, which was an ordinary level, which is where the term A level comes from. Because you used to do your ordinary levels, which were obviously to get you up to a certain standard. You then did your advanced levels. And whereas kids doing O levels might do 10, 12, 13 different subjects in a week, when you move to A levels, when I did mine, you could choose between 3 and 5. That was the maximum subjects that you could do. So obviously the advanced levels being a lot deeper, a lot more advanced before you did that. And then obviously, depending on your A-level results, so A-level is our college qualification, which kids would do in years 12 and 13, which is when they're sort of 17 going on 18. It's those 2 years. They then get their A-levels, and it's their A-level results that will then determine how many points they get towards our university system, which is called UCAS. You have to earn points for getting so many qualifications. So like, for example, if you wanted to go and do, I'm making these numbers up, by the way, so nobody quote me on this. If you wanted to go and do a maths degree, you might need, again, 200 UCAS points, and an A level might pay you 50 UCAS points. So you might need, and if you get it at, say, grade B, grade A, or something like that, and then you have to accumulate enough points to then be able to qualify to go to university to study that particular course. If you don't get enough points, you either need to go and get more education, more qualifications, or resit your exams to try and get a higher amount to be able to get sufficient points to then get into university. And university, again, standard, if you went straight from college, you'd be starting that at 19. And our university courses are typically 3 years long. But there are certain ones which are 4 years long, and then things like medicine are 6 years long. If you wanted to become a doctor, it's a 6-year university degree here. Does that answer your question?
No, that totally answers my question. That kind of, your college is kind of built into our high school a little bit, and we do different things. Different states do different things, but we now actually have, most states give the option for what you would consider, somebody that's 15, 16, 17 years old, still in high school. They can actually go and get college credit, and take college classes at local universities instead of taking their high school classes. So that actually gives them a leg up on once they start. Yeah.
The bonus is that the state pays for it.
Yeah, it's free.
So
it's
cool.
Can you imagine that I teach at a community college, and every year I've ever taught, we have had at least 30 students out of a graduating class of 1,000 that graduate with a 2 years associate's degree before they actually graduated high school.
So tell us your college ages again. How old's the kids in your college?
So college
18 to
would be
22 typically for
college
your
is
grade.
18. 18 through 21
So that's
would
what we
be
would. So
would be college.
that's our university.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's our
And
university.
here's the difference between college and university in the United States. Okay. A university is a conglomeration of colleges. So, for example, the Ohio State University is made up of 17 different colleges that
Right.
all are like the College of Engineering, the College of Business, the College of blah, blah, blah. They all make up the university. And then there are also some smaller schools like, Belmont College, which is just a small college and it's just a 4-year institution. And they just focus on basically one thing. Normally, those are what we call liberal arts colleges.
Okay. So again, let's just quickly shift tact a bit and go to qualifications. So obviously, because I've never understood, I got this off Miss Congeniality, ironically. that's a very good
Yeah.
source of reference for information. But when they're introducing the pageant contestants, they say so and so is a science major. What's a major?
Okay. So when you go to college, or university, when you go there, you have to at some point declare what we call your major. That is the major concentration of which you're going to study. And nowadays, there are majors in just about anything that you can think of. But let's say you wanted to be a biology major. Well, you would take general core classes, maybe your first year, and then get into some more biology classes. Then over your third and fourth year, you would be mainly doing biology and biology related classes, and you would come out with what they call a bachelor's of science in biology. Then there is something called the bachelor's of arts, which is a more a well-rounded version of it, and is less scientific and less of doing maths and doing research. Um, excuse me. But most all subjects have a bachelor's of science in there. You can get a bachelor's of science in English. It just means that you are studying a concentration of that subject.
That makes. I mean, that's slightly different. I mean, Stuart, did you ever go to university? Where did you? Or have you left school yet?
What's a school?
Exactly. Did they have them
No.
when you was a kid?
Well, a bit of interesting information at the very risk of telling everyone my exact age. My year was the first year to have GCSEs.
Oh, right. Okay.
You're the
And
same age as Mrs. Minnie.
Yep, we're probably, yeah, because the year before me they were doing O level, and of course they suddenly said, well, we're going to come out with these new GCSEs, and it absolutely scared the living poop out of me because I was one of those people that really didn't like concentrate much during classes, and I was a bit of disruption and stuff like that. You'd never have guessed
no,
it.
I'd never have twigged that.
But when it actually came to the exams, I always used to do really, really well in the exams. Okay. But unfortunately, with the GCSE, there was a really heavy
Coursework.
emphasis put on coursework, which meant that I no longer could just fly through it on exam results alone. And that was worrying for me at the time. But yeah, I mean, it's worth saying to Puttz though that we have the equivalent of these secondary schools over here where they actually see you right through to the A levels. So you'll have your sort of like fifth year and all that, which will do your GCSEs now. And then you'll have your lower six and upper six, which is where you get 2 years of training for your A levels before you then decide to go to university. Now, here in Jersey, we don't have universities because we're just too small. So most
France.
of the students go to the UK. And one of our sort of higher learning colleges over here, if you like, a better word, is actually part of the Southampton campus. So it's actually counts as part of the Southampton campus, and they can
Right.
get straight through to there. Like my daughter, she ended up in Chichester University, doing stuff there instead. So if they want that sort of level of education, they have to the UK to get it.
I mean, that's if somebody wanted to go, for example, Hull, where I am, it's well renowned for being a decent medical university, but it's terrible at loads of other things as well. So loads of kids will go to the university that specialises in the area that they want to go into.
Exactly. Yeah.
So obviously people do move, don't they? They go into like their halls of residence, or they rent somewhere or something like that. And at what point, this is quite an interesting one, at what point do you start paying for it over there, Puttz? At what point does it stop being, if you wanted to stay in public schools, how far can you go without any financial burden on the individual?
Yeah. So that would be high school. So high school, once you graduate high school, then the onus is on you for getting more education. There's lots of grants and loans and scholarships and whatnot. I would have to say that if you're in the top 10% of your class in high school, then you probably are doing pretty darn well, and maybe not even have to pay for college because you probably got enough scholarship, or at least close.
No.
Silva's like, no, not for me, not for me. But you
I
know,
was top 5 in my class, and I'm paying for most of it.
Yeah. What is a scholarship? Can you define scholarships for?
A
Okay.
scholarship is amount of money that is given to a student that does not need to be paid back. It's very similar to a grant, but typically is given for a different reason than a grant. Scholarships are usually given based on merit or financial need.
And who pays that then? Is that paid by the state? Is that paid by...
It's typically donors.
Well, yeah, there's it, to answer the question, yes, it's paid for. Some scholarships are paid for by the government. Some scholarships are paid for by private entities, like setting up a trust fund to give out scholarships. Some scholarships, and this is where a lot of the private schools do, is it's actually through their own foundation. So, like most every school has a not-for-profit foundation to handle all of the charitable givings to the schools and whatnot. And places like Harvard and Yale and the other 6 evil 8 schools, they have millions, billions of dollars in their foundations, and they can pick and choose basically whoever they want to give full rides to if they so choose. So a lot of places actually are regurgitating the money in the United States. Like their own entity is giving scholarships to pay themselves back.
Sounds like a tax dodge to me.
Yes.
Like a tax dodge.
In most cases, it is.
Did someone just have Big Ben playing?
That's
on
what I
in
was
the
just about to
background?
say,
Right?
yeah. Oh,
Sorry, I live across the street from a Catholic church, and it is 8:30 here, so you got to hear half of the Catholic hour chime.
That
sounded like
it was in your
Big
living
Ben.
room. It sounded like it was in your living room.
I literally, if I opened up the front door and I literally can see the bells in the steeple. It's like, I don't know, 50, 60 meters away.
That reminds me of that Monty Python sketch with the bells, and they're coming down the road.
Coming down. Yeah. Good British humour. None of the Yanks will have ever watched Monty Python to any level of
And they'll be
extent.
the worst for it.
Absolutely the worst for it. I totally agree. So yeah, we don't start paying for
I've
it.
watched
Go on.
I've watched most of Monty Python. I haven't watched everything, but I've watched most.
Okay, we'll give you a bit more
And
credit
that's
then.
why you're an amazing person.
It is because every time I say Silvers, have you watched? I don't even bother saying the show because I realise that he's never going to have watched anything.
Please, I was doing the same with you at the weekend. Have you watched? No. Did you watch? No. What do you do?
British comedy. What do I do? I spend half my life on here talking to you lot about random crap. That's what I spend half my life doing. But anyway, Candy, give us your take on your education system. I mean, how do you think it works well? Do you think it needs changing? I mean, what's your take?
I mean, like looking at the education system now, it it's changed quite a bit from when I was in school, where like when my friend's kiddo would be like, he's like, I need you to help me with this homework here, and I was like, okay, I'm like, well, this is pretty easy here, and she's like, I need to do it this way. I was like, what are you talking about? It's like how the new generation of educational learners are having to learn like core maths, where like
New
when
math,
Oh
new math,
yes.
And
I mean,
phonics.
like it wasn't like core math wasn't even like brought up, or it was still a twinkle in somebody's eye during that time, and I'm like, all
Well,
right, you're
Lou,
gonna have to teach me how to do how to do
Yeah.
this, because I
Lou,
didn't
have
learn
you
this
seen
way.
this? Have you seen this, Lou? Being a a numbers person yourself, have you seen this like new method? And by
No.
new, I mean over the last sort of, like, what is it, 3, 4, 5 years or so? They do this new version of maths, and I think division was one of the ones that they were talking
Yeah.
about. Is that right, Candy? Was it
It's-
division was the main one that was like totally different, and the way you do the maths. I need to look it up and show you. You'll be like, what the actual f?
I mean,
Yeah.
No long
it's
division
like
anymore.
it's like yeah, it's like between like well, it's all four sections, so it's like between like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Like, it's all like it seems like it's all broken down into like larger chunks that like how they're kind of like starting their math, how their solution process versus like
Yeah.
when we all took it, it's like, all right, let's take out the stone tablet and start
Yeah.
start carving out
Long division,
like
long
little
multiplication. It just works, though, doesn't it?
yeah.
But honestly, this way that they
But
did
only
it,
if
it
you
was
put the little
really weird.
table.
I know something about the new math. So the new math is actually based on a math process called Singaporean math or Singapore math, and it's a new way to do multiplication and adding and subtracting it's weird. And
Yeah, but you
I'm
guys
slowly.
can't even get that right, can you? Because you
Well, no,
do within the brackets first, and then
yeah,
you do with outside the brackets. Whereas you lot can't even do that right. You went, I know the British have left us this, so we'll switch it
No,
around
it's
and we'll do
the
it
You
this
same.
must
way.
use BODMAS. You must use BODMAS to do all
They
of
do.
that.
They call
yeah,
it
but yeah,
parentheses, because there's parentheses instead of brackets. So
Yeah.
they're pebcast instead of Bob.
And
Yeah,
thus,
our one. Yeah.
yeah.
parentheses, explanation, multiplication, division,
Vision,
addition, subtraction.
subtraction. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So they do have the same. No, but this one's different. I mean, it's not that those rules still apply. It's just the method in which they do it, and I can't remember if it was division or multiplication, but it was one of the two, and it was just nuts.
But there's just no
Well,
need
no,
to
like
change it. There's no need to. Was there any need to change it? Is it easier to learn now?
it is easier to learn, sort of, if you start that way. It is absolutely atrocious if you've learned the way we all learned and then go, okay, let me look at this new system, because it's not a memorization of multiplication tables like 5 times 5 is 25, etc., like that. But if you're taking two numbers like 15 times 12, right? You would go, okay, I've got a 1 and a 1. Okay, so I'm just going to multiply those and get, okay, that's 100, and then I'm going to multiply the 5 and the 2, and it's weird. It's just weird. It's not wrong and it's not bad. It's just different.
Very different. I tell you
And
what is wrong.
and
I tell you what is wrong, and then we'll swift on. I helped my niece and my nephew to do spellings once when they were young, when they were probably 6 and 7. Both of them did this. They learned spelling through phonics. Ever heard of phonics? It's the
yes,
most ridiculous system.
Phonics work for me.
It's the most ridiculous
yes,
thing I've
yes,
ever heard.
Andy,
So basically,
exactly what I was saying.
they
Focus on
taught them to spell it how it sounds. So, like, if they was gonna spell, I don't know, pick a word, phenomenon, they'd spell it with an F. They would teach them how to spell it how it sounds, so that they could read it and then they would teach them how to spell it properly. I just
That's great.
I've never seen anything so stupid in my life. Like, I mean, she was doing her spellings. I said, no, you can't do it like that. She said, no, this is right. I said, no, it's not right. I'm telling you, this is not how you spell that. She went, no, it's right because I'm using phonics. I said, what the where's my button? Are phonics? Do you know what I mean? Just what? And yes, she was 6, and yes, I did swear because I didn't understand what they were doing. And I sat there, and she sat there, and she said, "No, this is right." And she showed me the textbook that they were writing from. This like little, it was on like a little 6-page thing, and it was, and yeah, she was doing it right. Teach them to spell it how it's spelt, so that they can learn to read it better, and then teach them how to spell it after. So you're having to learn the same words twice. And it plagues her now. It absolutely plagues her now, and I know it does because every now and again she'll spell a ph word with an F because that's just been ingrained in her brain. And I just find that there was just no need. Why learn something twice and wrong to start with? Why would you do that?
I don't know. That seems so dumb.
Oh,
I
it's
don't
ridiculous.
know.
Honestly, if anybody ever gets bored, look up phonics, and that's spelt with PH, by the way, which I thought was the funniest thing ever. That the actual book was titled phonics and it was spelt PH. I thought, well, why aren't the books titled with an F? You know what I mean? Why didn't they do that? But yeah, anyway. That's freedom and reason. That's the education system. Probably quite a bit in there. I think we can agree that we've got alignments. What are you laughing at, Stewie?
I'm still on F. you making your niece cry over it.
I know. I mean, what the actual F? Do you know what I mean? Come on.
You mean what the actual PH?
Exactly. What the actual PH? Exactly. I missed an opportunity there, didn't I? But no, absolute madness. And the education system, very similar, I think, from both sides in summary. Obviously, with just a few different naming differences. But on the whole, very, very, I think broadly similar in terms of the way that it goes. Okay, we're now going to move on to our STFC topic of the pod, and this one I think is quite divisive. I think this is something that's changed over time. We're going to talk about should you build a G4 epic ship? So we're talking about the Tribune, the Enterprise A, and the Hector, the level 50 shipyard ships, which were very, very expensive. That was basically the whole premise of why nobody ever built them. Something's come into the game very, very recently, talking in November 2024. Obviously, we've had a reduction to the faction credit costs of those, where you can actually get things cheaper using the new Terran faction store. And it's just about, do we think these are worth having? And luckily, having 2 wannabe 51s on the podcast with us, I think you've both built 50 ships.
We have 2 of those?
Are you 51?
You said wannabe.
2 wannabe 51s. Yeah.
I don't wannabe.
You and Puttz. Yes, you do. Very good. Very good. Okay, so we'll start off with. I think the best place to start with this will be me and Stewie, and I think that's because if we go back when me and Stewie were coming up through the 40s, the 50 ships were basically a write-off, Stewie. I think you will agree with me here that they were 650 blueprints. They were something like 1.95, 2.0 million or something like that faction credits. Faction credit sourcing was much less, and the best ships in the game at the point where we were starting to work on the 40s, the best ships were the Ops 46 ships, the Pilum, the Newton, and the... What's the other one?
Coroner?
The Coroner, yeah. Thank you. They were the best ships in the game because of their loot bonus, and they were just so capable, such capable ships that you didn't need a 50 ship to actually do anything. Stuart, I think you will agree with me that was the general consensus to skip the 50s.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with the 50 ships, they're great ships. There's no doubt about it. They are great ships, but the problem with those ships is that at the point where they are still useful, they are not viable to source, in my opinion. So that at the point where you could really benefit from them, you really shouldn't be spending how much they cost to get them, because you should be saving to get in something that's better. And by the time you do have the expendable stuff to get them, they are less viable. Okay. Now I say that with a caveat, which is the Tribune is still one hell of an awesome ship.
Amazing ship.
You know, I mean, you max one of those and you can still have fun with them, even in the upper upper mid to late game easily. They're amazing. It's an amazing ship.
I've
And
got
I
one,
speak
and
as
I
someone
still
that's
use it
still
every now and again.
saving. Yeah, I'm still doing my away team tokens towards it, because I keep on forgetting to collect them.
Yeah.
But I'm about 400 in or something like that. But it is an amazing ship, isn't it?
It's a superb ship, and it was actually the only, if you was ever going to get a 50 ship back in the day, back a couple of years ago, it was the only ship that you could actually get that was even remotely amazing. The Enterprise A was plagued with bugs. It was plagued with issues. Its ability never works. Its stats were atrocious, and the Hector was just a typical interceptor. It was just an absolute glass cannon. And because everybody had invested so heavily generally into pylons, nobody had any ship parts to be able to upgrade a Hector, because ship parts, again, at that point, 2 or 3 years ago, when 50 ships were in the discussion to start with at first, nobody could get the parts. So it just wasn't feasible if you got a pylon to do anything with a Hector. So the only option really was to go for a Tribune. Now, there was a buff that probably came out in 2023, early 2023. I'm gonna guess, where they actually rebalanced the epic ships and they made the Enterprise A much better. They rebalanced its stats to bring it more in line with the Tribune. I mean, it did have some unplanned consequences where people's ships, and this is not an exaggeration, went from 20-30 million up to 50 million with one maintenance. They literally doubled in physical strength because of the enormous boost that they'd had to stats, which then does have an advantage whereby you was going to armadas, and because of the way that armada loot is distributed based on power, that you was getting so much more of the loot soaked up with your potentially crappier Enterprise A, whilst a Tribune actually carried you through, or a pylon carried you through. You were just soaking up all of the loot, obviously, because of that scenario. But so when we were going through, it just wasn't viable. It was too expensive. Ship parts was such a huge problem. And the other thing, when you think about it this way, you could get, when they launched G5, the credits that you needed to spend in order to be able to get a Tribune, you could use those credits and you would be able to get a Nova and a 53 ship, whether you chose to go, whichever one you decide to go for. Let's go for these Vulture, Northcut, and the Explorer, the Corvus. Yeah, and the Corvus, whichever G5 uncommon you decided that you wanted to go for, outclassed that ship relatively quickly in terms of warp range, so hostiles that you needed to hit in G5 and things like that. And you could save so many faction credits by building a Nova and a 53 when you decided to go there. So it was just so much. It was such an easy skip. And Stewie, I don't think you disagree.
Not at all. It's like I say, it seems to be par for the course for many things in the game, though, that when things become easily and readily available for you to say, do you know what? Yeah, I'm going to splash out and do that. They have become less useful by a long shot.
Yeah.
Whether that's by design. In other words, well, if you really want to get to use these, then you're going to have to put out or get out, sort of thing, or not. But it's a bit of frustration, because you wait for a while, you save up things, you go to get something, you go, oh, actually, I don't really want to use this anymore.
Exactly, or you don't, or it's just not usable for you anymore because you've got something that's going to do the job so much better, reach so much better, so much easier. So that's mine and Stewie's perspective, obviously from when we were going through the game a couple of years ago. And again, just for clarity, Stewie is a very high G5 player. I'm a mid G6 player. So our opinion on them now is that they're never going to use them other than for a bit of fun, maybe in PvP, incursions, things like that. They do just become a fun ship. Now, the next two that we can talk to in Silvus and Puttz, both of those are currently Ops 50 in the game. So they are right at the point where these ships will either be their backbone to their game, or they are making that active decision to skip them, wait for the G5 ships and go that way. So let's start with you, Silvus. Now, I know your base opinion on the 50s, but explain to the listeners your opinions on the G5 and how that works in 2024.
I'm just not a fan of how the G5 brackets are set up. So I've just opted not to go to G5 quite yet.
But what about the actual ships themselves? What have you got and what do you find that you use them for?
I have a G4 Epic Enterprise A. You said G5, which threw me off, Lube.
Sorry, sorry. I do mean G4. G4
Yeah.
Epics.
I have an Enterprise A. It is currently tier 9, 168 million power, and I love it.
And do you use it for everything? Are you still pulling out your pylon for stuff? Is it a choice between the two for you to make when you go out and do a grind, whether you go for the loot bonus from your... See, I remember rightly, your pylon's pretty high as well.
Yeah, my Newton and pylon are both tier 10. Typically these days, the Enterprise A gets used for most of the grinding that needs to be done with hostiles. The Enterprise A and the Newton will get used in waves, and the pylon will be used for armadas, group armadas, not solos. I'll use all three for solos.
Of course, that just works. So, I mean, do you regret buying them? Obviously, I think because you're planning on sticking at 50 for some time, I suppose, let's say if we put you in another camp where you was ready and you felt happy to go into G5, do you think that would have changed your decision on getting / working on the G4 epics? What would you advise to players now? If somebody was 46, 47 and starting to think about their next ship, where would you steer them?
I don't regret it personally. I am a slow roller. I move through ops pretty slowly. I build up my research and ships pretty high, and I make sure that I'm within the top 90% of the game at that ops level. What I would recommend to players that are sitting at 46, maybe they've just built their G4 rare, is to consider two things. What G5 uncommon they might want, and then based on that, which G4 epic they would want, or vice versa, from depending on what order you want to make that decision in. But obviously, the faction credits are a lot to be able to purchase these, and you do need to be efficient in how you go about it. So I'm probably going to be building a Vorcha when I eventually go into G5. I'm not going to say that I never will, because that's probably not going to be true.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that I'll be building a Vorcha, which uses Klingon credits. And I currently have Enterprise A, which I spent between 700,000 and 800,000 Federation credits on, and I'll probably build a Tribune too, just because.
Just because, again, in my opinion, it's got one of the best ship abilities in the game. Aside from the loot bonuses of the 46s, that ship ability of adding shots when burning on the Tribune is arguably, other than the loot, the second best ship ability in the game. I can't think of anything that I would rather have other than that.
Enterprise, G3.
G3, but great shout. Obviously, the built-in Spock on a G3 Enterprise. Yes, I would totally agree. That's probably very, very close up there as well. So, Puttz, similar sort of questions. Give us your take. Whereabouts are you? I don't know what ships you've got, but obviously, are you 51 now?
Nope, not 51 yet. So, it is what it is. No, when I went 50, in the day that I claimed 50, I also went and built a Tribune, and I instantly built it to tier 9.
Wow.
Yeah. That was a weekend for a leaderboard, the whole 9 yards. And that's where it has sat. And my tier 9 Tribune is equivalent to my tier 10 pilot. They're pretty much on par with each other.
Do you
and I
mean in
use
terms
them
of capability or ship strength?
capability, ship strength, what they can hit, what they can kill, how many they can kill. They're basically almost identical.
So why would you ever fly the Tribune when you can fly a pylon that's equally as powerful, kills the same number of hostiles, but you're also getting a boost in loot?
Okay, so my Pylum has for it boost of loot, sure, and cheaper repair. I will fly both of them in wave. I
Of
will
course.
do both of them. and another ship in solos, and I will use both of them in group armadas because I will, my alliance likes to run 17 group armadas at the same time. So I am struggling to find always a second, a third ship that will actually get me into an armada.
Right.
So for me, why did I build the Tribune? I built the Tribune because of its shipability, and I have now Neelix maxed. I have BLT maxed, and you put those two on that, and you put that and all of the multi shots from an Armada perspective. uh, I I I was soloing with no boost in my Tribune a 54 uncommon FKR for the damage event, and I was soloing them easily. And I was running Chakotay, Miles, and the new shot officer that I can't remember their name.
Tolra.
The Josh
Tora,
Tula.
yeah. Yeah, and then I had BLT, I had Neelix below deck, I had Paris below deck, I had um, Troy, I had just
Yeah.
throwing shots left and right. I think one round I ended up, I think I counted like I was above 50 shots for one round, and like all of them were critical. It was glorious.
No, and and that's going back to what I was saying about the Tribune's shipability. It is absolutely exceptional. And I mean, one of the things that sort of came into where this became a conversation again on skipping the G5 ships. Skipping the G4
G4.
epic ship, G4 epic ships. I corrected myself, so I haven't given you a chime for that. Was things like the introduction of silence and waves and having a couple of really capable ships. Would you find do you do your silent runs with your G4 rares, or would you do your silent runs with G4 Epic?
I do it with my
It
Epic.
really, and for me, it depends on whichever one I've got available at the time, and I'm not doing the silence for the loot.
Oh, I am.
Okay,
Okay.
because I mean that sourcing of the temporal artifacts from the silence is. I mean that's one of the main parts of it, isn't it? But obviously, you're also getting free prime sourcing from that as well. So, I mean, I see the silence as a really, really key loop for people to remain
Oh,
engaged in, if possible.
I guess what I meant to say was like I'm not worried about the loot because I just throw on a loot crew, and no matter which ship I'm on, I'm gonna fill up my loot now. Fill up my hull and just get out of there.
Yeah.
And so right now for my level, I do silence on one run for 10 days.
Yeah, that's great. I suppose where I'm trying to lead that part of the conversation was I'm trying to, for anybody that's listening and that's considering whether to build a G4 Epic or not, I'm trying to think that, yes, it's a nice to have. Is it a must have? If you
No, it's not. I can answer that. Here's my take on it, right? The reason why I built it was because, like Silvis, I wasn't planning on, oh my gosh, I got to get to 51, 52, 53, right? Like if I had a plan of as soon as I hit 50, I'm just going to keep going and maybe buy a few packs to help me along the way and get it done in like a month, then I wouldn't have built it. I would have gone straight to 53. But
Let's buy packs. May this never be.
right. But if you're planning on slow rolling it or free to playing it, right? Yeah, it's worthwhile. I have been 50 for I
Too
think
long.
two arcs. Sorry, two arcs. I probably will go 51 before the end of the year,
Okay.
calendar year.
Silvers, same question. Nice and easy. Must have or nice to have?
Not a must-have, but depending on how much of a spender you are and how much you value the different loops that have come out in the past year, Silence, Zindi, Mirror, that kind of stuff, you may struggle until you build your 53 ship.
Okay. So awesome. Right. So now, given that, and I've done this way on purpose. So now we're down to Candy and Minnie. Candy, just remind me of your ops level. I've not asked you for a while. I think you was 46, 47 or something like that last time I spoke to you. What ops are you now?
48 with 49 in the oven right now.
Okay, so then you've got the big slog between 49 and 50, which obviously is the painful level to try and get to the end of a generation. And Minnie, your highest account level now?
It's 46.
46. So you are both at that point where you're about to make this decision, where you're considering, do I build a G4 Epic? Do I not build a G4 Epic? And obviously, mine and Stewie's take on them are probably irrelevant to you two, because obviously they're based on a game that you're not playing anymore. But Putz's and Silver's takes are the decisions that you need to make. What do you think? What are your current plans? Has anything that the guys have said today swayed you? Have they made you change your plans? What's your plan, Candy, with regards to the G4 Epic?
Before that, remember that you can start purchasing G4 Epic blueprints at 600 million rep and Ops 48 from the away team store.
Correct.
Yeah, so like I mean, if this was like back in the day when like you said, Lou, before they rebalanced the G4 epics, like it would have been like no question, like I would have like completely disregarded the G4 epics. But more and more, especially over the last couple of months, like between folks like other creators like RevDeuce, like kind of showcasing his G4 epics, and then Silvus seeing his Enterprise A kind of rolling around the galaxy. I mean, it seems like the G4 epics are a lot more relevant in today's game than they were like several years ago. Where, and just like what Silva's just mentioned in regards to pulling blueprints from the away team store. And I'm in the process of beginning to invest in a Tribune when I'm able to get to that point where I can actually finally build it. So it seems like it's more and more close to a necessity or necessary, like in my opinion, to get a G4 Epic at this point to kind of continue and progress on.
Do you plan to go? Do you plan to sit at 50, or do you think once you've pushed the button on 50, do you think you'll move into G5 quite quickly?
If when I'm at that point, if I'm at a point where I have enough resources of G4 materials stocked up, because I know like some of the economics change a little bit when you get to 51 and you start getting more into G5, where G4 kind of sourcing starts to turn down. Well, I'm gonna make sure I'm in a good spot with my G4 Epic, but at the same time, when G5, like especially like when you unlock the Nova, since the Nova is still fairly relevant for kind of getting your G5 mining like speeded up a lot more versus what any of your faction miners can do at that point. Like that would be the only kind of
thing that
wants
wanted you to push.
Want to push, but in all honesty, like I probably would hang out at 50 like Silvus is doing to make sure that I'm right where I need to be before I continue to push further.
And that you're ready to go. No, I totally understand that. Minnie, what about you? What's your plan? Obviously, you've got 4 ops levels left. Have you built a 46 ship yet?
No, I'm working on my pylon.
Yep.
And as I'm working on my pylon and my Federation rep is through the roof, I've got 75 blueprints of my next Enterprise.
All right.
So I was going for the Epic.
So you're going for it as well, and I think it's mad to think that 2 years ago you probably I bet 1 in 10 people ever built a G5 Epic, G4 Epic, whereas now out of 2 people that are already there and 2 people planning to go there, 100% of you are planning on building a G4 Epic, or have already.
The Silence and the Borg Cube have done this though, haven't they?
I think the introduction of some of the loops where they've tried to make the hostiles a little bit more challenging in certain areas, I think it has pushed people to potentially not skip a class of ship. I think probably the most skippable is still going back to G3, and it's the 32s. I think they're probably still the most skippable because of the sheer quantity of specialty ships that come out that can carry you from your 28 ship up to your 34 ship. But aside from that, I totally understand people buying stuff from every generation. So no. So in terms of your plan, same question that I asked Candy. What do you think that when you say you hit 50 tomorrow, do you think you would push to 51, or do you think you would sit and hold a bit and go for the Silvers Puttz approach?
I so going from 30s into 40s, my ships were so beneath everything else. My research was on par, my station was on par, my officers were ahead of the game, but my ships were rubbish. So this generation, I'm focusing on my ships. Now, if my ships are at the point where I can go and do my dailies, then I will be going straight from 50 straight through.
Okay.
I will be saving up and going straight through, yeah.
Okay. Outstanding. So differing opinions, I think that was a great segment. I think there's loads of different things for people to think about. And the big thing about it is it's your account. You play it the way that you want it, but don't go too fast to the point where you can't do anything and the game becomes unplayable to you. But also don't sit for too long and potentially miss out on those future resources. Make sure you're ready, go at your own pace. But there's loads of different strategies for it. So, no, awesome. Thank you. I think that was a really good segment. Thank you. Remember, guys, that we are available on all major podcast platforms. Please go and download it. Set it to download so that it appears in your inbox every single time that we release a new episodes of Brits and Yanks Talk Trek. And while you're there doing that subscription, please leave us a 6 out of 5 star review so we can start reading some of those reviews. They give us a little shot in the arm. It's nice, obviously, to hear what people say about the podcast, and we want the channel to grow. So please share it out. Join our Discord. You can get access to all the tools that are created by Stewie Do on there, the Battlelog tool, the Officer tool, and obviously all the chats that Silvers creates as well, the Syndicate planning spreadsheet, the Primes planning spreadsheet. You can get access to all of those things on there. So please join our Discord and join in the chat on there. It's really good. And obviously all of our other channels as well. You can find me, it's Lube, on Twitch. And you can also find Mini Mabel on Twitch as well. I've also got a YouTube channel for all the Star Trek Fleet Command content on YouTube. So you can find that nice and easy. You can find all of my content at itslube.com. Itslube.com. You can also find all of our merch. So we've got Brits and Yanks Talk Trek merch. Go grab yourself a mug, support the channel, and let us know how much you love the podcast by engaging in that merch store, which is all expertly curated by Candy. While you're there, consider becoming a member as well. Consider becoming a member of the podcast. It helps us, obviously, financially to be able to keep the podcast going and invest in new tech and new bits and pieces that we need for the podcast. And I'm going to say a huge thank you to all of our members right now. So I'm going to say a huge thank you to Mini Mabel, Antares, Jenny Mac, Deja Thoris, Dr. Iron Chef, Virtual Army, Zek, Texas Guy, Brexon, Roku, Killer Angel, Grumpy, Sherlock, Telrina, Mad Hadji, Jakers, Rusty Halo, great name, Sugar Fat Man, and Jorge Georgie Boy. Thank you so much for being current members at itslube.com. Thank you so much for doing that. And with the more people we get on there, we are going to start running some more member exclusive stuff there as well. Thank you, absolutely everybody. Thank you so much to Silver, Stewie, Minnie, Candy, and Puttz. Thank you, all of you, for being here at episode 15 as we call to a close. It's been an absolute pleasure. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, everybody. And remember that absolutely everything is better with Lube. Take care, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, all. Bye.
Bye, driver.
Bye.